There is a particular kind of self-betrayal that almost no one admits to. It happens quietly. Something good arrives in your life. A relationship that feels safe. A chance you actually wanted. A stretch of peace where, for once, nothing is wrong. And then, slowly, without quite deciding to, you begin to take it apart. You pick the fight, you miss the deadline, you pull away from the person who was kind to you. You find the one loose thread in something whole and you pull. Afterward, you tell yourself a story. You were tired, they changed, the timing was wrong, but underneath the story is a quieter suspicion you don't say out loud that some part of you reached for the good thing and another part reached past it on purpose to break it. More than 150 years ago, a sick, bitter, brilliant man sat in a cramped room in street Petersburg and wrote down the confession the rest of us spend our lives avoiding. He had no name. Dostoevsky never gave him one, because he wasn't meant to be a character you watch from a safe distance. He was meant to be a mirror. They call him the underground man. And what he understood about you is darker and more useful than anything comfort will ever tell you. He understood why you destroy your own happiness. Not in spite of yourself, but as the deepest, strangest assertion of who you are. This is the psychology Dostoevsky buried inside the most uncomfortable book he ever wrote. And once you see it working in you, you can never fully unsee it. He begins with a line that should be printed on the wall of every therapist's office. I am a sick man. I am a spiteful man. I am an unattractive man. And then, a few pages in, the diagnosis that explains almost everything. To be too conscious, he says, is an illness, a real, thoroughgoing illness. Read that again, because it cuts against everything you've been told. You have been promised your whole life that awareness heals. That if you could just understand yourself a little more, see your patterns a little more clearly, name your wounds a little more precisely, you would finally be free. Dostoevsky says the opposite can be true. That, past a certain point, consciousness stops being a light and becomes a trap. Because the more acutely you see every motive behind your motive, every angle, every way a thing could go wrong, the less able you become to simply live. You stand at the edge of a good moment and you analyze it to death. You meet someone kind and you immediately ask why and what they want and how it will end. The underground man can feel everything and act on none of it. He calls the place he retreats to the mouse hole, a cramped, airless corner of the mind where you sit and you think and you think and you mistake the thinking for depth. This is the first secret of self-sabotage. It does not come from not understanding yourself. Very often, it comes from understanding yourself too well to move. And from that, over-awareness grows something colder, spite. We usually imagine spite as something aimed at an enemy, but the underground man's spite has no target at all except himself. He tells us, almost proudly, that he is sick, that his liver hurts, that he knows exactly which doctor could help him. And he refuses to go. I refuse to consult a doctor from spite, he says. You probably will not understand that. Well, I understand it. Sit with how strange that is. He is in pain. The cure is available. And he would rather keep the pain than be the kind of man who gets managed, fixed, helped, made obedient to his own best interest. The suffering is his. It belongs to him. And he will not give it up just because giving it up would be good for him. You have done this. Maybe not with a liver, but with an apology you would not make, even though making it would have ended the loneliness. With help you would not accept, because accepting it would mean admitting you needed it. With a door someone left open that you closed, just to prove no one could make you walk through it. That is spite with no victim but yourself. And to understand why a human being would ever choose it, Dostoevsky takes us to the center of the whole book, to an idea so radical it still hasn't been absorbed by the world that runs on optimizing you. In his time, the great promise was the Crystal Palace, a vision of a perfect, rational future, where science and reason would arrange life so well that human beings, given the right conditions, would naturally do what was good for them. Happiness as an equation, solve for the variables, and suffering disappears. And the underground man from his corner laughs at it, because he sees the one thing the equation cannot hold. He says that on every list of what is advantageous to a human being, the makers of these systems have left one advantage off, the most important one, the advantage of being able to want what is bad for you. One's own free, unfettered choice, he calls it. One's own fancy, however wild. A man, he insists, will deliberately want something stupid, something ruinous, something that wrecks his own contentment, for the single reason that it is his to want. Why? Because a man who always acts in his own interest is, in the end, predictable. And a predictable man, the underground man says, is nothing but a piano key, a stop in an organ, something the universe presses, and the expected note comes out. And he would rather go mad, he says this plainly. He would rather contrive destruction and chaos. He would rather suffer than be a thing whose behavior can be calculated in advance. This is the engine under your self-sabotage, and it is not weakness. It is a desperate, backwards declaration of freedom. When your life becomes too smooth, too arranged, too obviously good, when everyone agrees on what you should do, and the rational path is lit up in front of you, some ancient part of you would rather burn it down than be a key that the world presses to get the correct note. You break the good thing to prove that you are not a machine, that you are free, even if the only freedom you can find is the freedom to lose. And here is where Dostoevsky becomes a psychologist no one has surpassed. Because he asks the next question, if suffering is what we sometimes choose, then suffering must give us something. And it does. He says it in a line people rush past because it sounds absurd until you feel it. There is enjoyment even in toothache, enjoyment in pain. He describes the strange satisfaction in a moan, in despair, in the full, bitter awareness of your own degradation. The way misery, when you sink into it completely, starts to feel almost like a kind of richness, because misery pays you. It pays you in meaning. When you are suffering, you are deep, you are wronged. You are the one who sees how cruel it all is while others sleepwalk through their easy lives. Your pain becomes proof that you are more sensitive, more honest, more real than the people who are simply stupidly content. This is why self-sabotage is so hard to give up. It is not just a habit, it is a payment. The wreckage gives you an identity, the wounded one, the misunderstood one, the one who was always going to be let down. And calm, ordinary happiness offers none of that. Happiness asks you to be no one special, just a person living with nothing to prove and no one to blame. For someone who has built a self out of their wounds, that emptiness is terrifying, so they reach again for the familiar ache. And consciousness keeps them there, because the underground man, for all his seeing, cannot act. He envies what he calls the man of action, the simple, direct person who feels an insult and answers it, who wants a thing and reaches for it, who never drowns in the question of whether he has the right. The conscious man can't even take revenge, because he sees too many reasons, too many sides, too many ways he might be wrong. So instead he goes back to the mouse hole and he stews. For 40 years, he says, 40 years of rehearsing the moment he never lived. You know this paralysis. It is the conversation you replay instead of having, the plan you refine forever instead of starting. The feeling that if you just think about it a little longer, you will finally be ready, when the thinking is the thing keeping you from ever being ready at all. And then Dostoevsky does something merciless. He shows us what this man does when real tenderness finally reaches him. Her name is Liza, a young woman the underground man meets in the lowest place a person can be, and to whom, for one night, he speaks with what sounds like compassion. He paints her a picture of a different life. He moves her, and later she comes to find him not for money, not for anything, but because for one moment he had seen her as a human being and she had believed him. And when she stands in his room, offering him the one thing he has secretly wanted his entire life, to be loved, to be seen as something more than the wretch he believes he is, he cannot bear it. So he humiliates her, he turns cruel. He makes sure she understands that the man who spoke beautifully to her was a lie, that he is small and spiteful and cold. He destroys it on purpose in the exact instant it could have saved them both. This is the most important moment in the book, and the most important moment in your own life that you have probably never examined, because being genuinely loved is not safe for a person who has decided they are worthless. Kindness, real kindness, exposes you. It says, I see you, and I have not run. And if you have built your whole identity on the certainty that you are not worth staying for, then love is not a relief. It is a threat. It contradicts the story you live by. And so, like the underground man, you reach for the connection, and you reach past it, and you break it before it can break the story. We sabotage the good not when it fails us, but at the precise moment it might heal us. There is one more thing he does, and you will recognize it instantly. He manufactures drama to feel that he exists. He plots for years over an officer who once moved him aside without noticing, staging an imaginary war, scripting the moment he will refuse to step out of the way. He forces himself into a dinner party where he is not wanted, just to feel the friction of being alive. Because the truly unbearable thing for him is not conflict, it is the quiet, the flat, grey calm of a life where nothing is wrong and therefore nothing is happening. You have felt this too, the strange restlessness that arrives precisely when things are stable. The way some people blow up a good relationship, a steady job, a season of peace, not because anything was wrong, but because the silence of a good life can feel too much like not existing at all. Chaos, at least, is proof of life. Drama gives you stakes, and so you create the storm just to feel the rain. By now, the picture is complete, and it is bleak. But here is what Dostoevsky understood that the people who quote his despair always miss. The underground is not a fate, it is a room you furnished. The underground man did not fall into that corner of the mind, he decorated it. He made his resentment a home, comfortable, familiar, entirely his. I am alone, he says, and they are everyone. And he says it almost with pride. This is the final trap of self-sabotage, the one that keeps the door locked from the inside. The misery becomes who you are. And to leave it, you would have to admit that all those wasted years were not done to you, they were a choice. You can defend the underground, or you can leave it. You cannot do both. So what is the way out? Dostoevsky gives an answer, though the censors of his day cut the part where he made it explicit. He complained bitterly that they let the blasphemy through and removed the passage where he pointed to faith and to redemption. But the answer survives in the shape of the whole book, in everything the underground man refuses to do. The way out is not more analysis. You will not think your way out of the mouse hole because the thinking is the hole. You will not finally win the argument with yourself because the argument is the prison. The way out is what Dostoevsky calls living life, real, direct, unguarded life. Action without the guarantee that it will go well, connection without the certainty that you are safe, letting the good thing be good and not reaching past it, accepting the doctor, walking through the open door, letting yourself be seen by the one who stayed, and not detonating it to protect the old, sad story of who you thought you were. Near the end, the underground man says something that indicts every one of us. We have all lost the habit of living, he says. We all limp, each of us more or less. He is right. But a habit lost is a habit that can be found again. The destruction was never an accident, and that is the worst news and the best news at once. Because what you chose, you can also stop choosing. The good thing in your life right now, the one you can already feel yourself getting ready to ruin, does not have to be broken to prove that you are free. You were never a piano key. You don't have to smash the instrument to know it. You can just, for once, let it play.